Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. My name is Bliss Foster. Welcome back to the Margiela series, where we are exploring every single runway show that Martin Margiela produced at his eponymous house. We find ourselves in fall/winter 2002. It's a banger. This is a really good one. I like this one a lot. This show is significant because it helps to further canonize the way that the Maison redefines luxury. Because that's been the whole thing, right? The statements that Martin and the team have made are only valuable within the context of luxury Parisian fashion. Someone could be walking down the street with a sign and be saying like, "There are so many problems with the luxury fashion system in Paris. Sizing is weird. Women's bodies are depicted in really shitty, weird ways. There's lots of problems with the Paris." And it's not that this hypothetical person is wrong necessarily. It's just that that's very easy to do. I mean, pretty much anyone who looks at the fashion system can identify that those problems are there. But for a designer who is not only accepted in that system, but praised in that system to spend his career critiquing the system, that is when things get interesting. Okay, so in this show, we don't necessarily have a criticism of the fashion system. We have what I would call a complication. In academia, or at least in literature academia, people will often start off their theses or dissertation by saying that their goal is to, quote, complicate our understanding of blank. Now, this sounds like something that an asshole might say, but it's actually pretty useful because complications help us to see things that have normally gone overlooked. We're apparently doing this a lot today. All right, look. This is the part of the video where I'm supposed to plug the Patreon. Everything that I've ever read indicates that me plugging this out loud with my face and voice is what's going to help make people join the Patreon. I'm kind of over this like salesman-y way of coming up with like funny ideas and ways for you to join it. This is just the reality of the situation. I can't keep doing this if I don't have literal financial support. So if you like this series, if you like the stuff, go join it. Takes 30 seconds. It starts at $3 a month. You get a bunch of stuff because of it. Please do that. Or don't. It's up to you. Let's focus on looks 18 and 20. Men in the distinctive Margiela white lab coats come to the runway carrying clear plexiglass cases that might remind us of museum cases. Inside of those cases were vintage handbags that were wrapped completely in a piece of washed white cotton, which masked all of the details of the bags themselves. Le Monde magazine referred to these in their review as post-logo leather goods, which is actually a distinction that sort of applies to everything that the Maison makes, because other than the 4 white stitches, there's just no logos. It's all good design from the Maison. Like the Maison has done before, these bags were just purchased as is from a flea market. After they had the bags, they created these custom protection cases that are kind of, actually, they're like the protection cases for a couch. We're gonna fit that back on later. Even the insides of the bags had this protective white cotton that was able to fit perfectly into it and just cover the walls. And we don't have any photography of that, but as long as it's in the Bible, I believe it. So those protective covers were not mass manufactured, they were actually handmade by the team. They were held together by little snaps and you could undo them completely and throw them into the washing machine, get them back out, snap them back onto the bag and keep using it. This is such a good example of the Maison doing something that took an enormous amount of technical skill, but that the final product speaks very softly. Of course, oftentimes for artisanal pieces, companies want the final product to be screaming very loudly like, "Look at me, it took so much effort to make this." But the Maison even kind of mocks this idea of the boisterous declaration of effort. Like, as they often do, they took a found object, they found a way to add value to it, and that value was not some dinky arts and crafts thing. It was a real project that took a lot of professional technical skill to execute. But then the final product does speak very quietly, and that quietness is contrasted with this hilarious image of a guy carrying it like it is a priceless museum piece, like, "Here you go, your majesty." I don't know, I feel like the humor in the Maison doesn't get talked about enough, and I think that's pretty funny. "Here you go, your majesty." Okay, so let's move on to the actual point here. So this also plays into a specific idea of luxury, and I kind of had to tell you that story to tell you this story. So there's been so much ink spilled the last decade or so trying to answer this question, what is luxury? As the luxury market continues to shrink, we've been trying to crack the code of what makes objects so special that you would never consider giving them up. Let me give you an example. The most obvious side of luxury is this side that's like reputable companies making objects where no expense is spared on the quality of that object. Like, if you go to Hermes and you get a bag, then you can rest assured that that bag was made to the highest possible standards that humans can hold to each other to make a bag. But then there is this less obvious side of luxury, and that's things like the quilt that your grandmother made for you. And that's an object that is usually handmade. Usually things like that are things that aren't mass manufactured, but it mostly is valuable to you because of personal significance, right? So we've established that at a minimum, luxury has some kind of range to it. Okay, so Martin and the team are trying to occupy something around here in this range. So vintage items in their own way are kind of luxury items, at least in terms of scarcity, right? Like, have you ever gone thrifting, found something that was just unbelievably perfect, something that you just loved so much, you can't believe how lucky you were that you found it? Have you ever tried to find another one of those? It is fucking impossible. And similar to that, luxury goods that are over on this side of luxury, they're usually things where truly only a few of them were actually made, or they're just so expensive that it's like, you're not buying another one, dog. Well, for Hermes customers, they do tend to collect, but I think you understand my point. So we don't have a record of what the Maison stock looked like at the time. I really wish we did. But it's entirely possible that for these 2 bags, those were the only ones that could be found in the world for all we know. Very, very scarce. That's my point. So we have the scarcity side of fashion, but then we also have this kind of tender, handmade, precious object kind of feel to it as well. The vintage bags are being treated with the kind of obsessive care that you would give to a precious stuffed animal or to like your grandmother's wedding dress. And okay, look, I know that we've been talking about this this series has gone on for years at this point, but let's just stop for a second and remember how radical all this stuff actually is. If you told someone, I'm going to make a luxury fashion house that upcycles clothes from a flea market, makes exact replicas of vintage clothes, and sometimes cuts up pieces from my own archive in order to make new stuff, people would think that you were crazy, especially in the 1990s. Everyone in the fashion system, then and now, thought that the whole reason that they're there is to convince people that new clothes rule and old clothes suck. But Martin and the team have slowly built a case over 14 years that old things not only have a use, but have a deeply embedded value to them. And that's a value that can't be replicated by new things. I mean, if we just call this what it is, the Maison's only contribution to these bags is making a cotton case for them. Outside of the context that they've built with their house, that would be a really silly thing for a luxury company to offer. But if you can just catch the vision, you can see that vintage bags are rare and they're special. And they're so special, in fact, that you would want to honor them with the same level of care that you would give to an Hermes Kelly or to a Birkin. That's a pretty radical stance for a luxury fashion house to take. It's a pretty extreme position. Okay, so to kind of contrast with that idea, I keep doing this. I say we to spread the blame out. Everyone here on the team, we all agreed that this was a good thing to do like 8 times in this episode. To contrast with this idea of luxury, we have another set of really iconic pieces from this collection that are probably way better known than the handbags. These just legendary fur pieces. Should we do an all rise? We can do a quick one. All rise. Okay, sit down. These are really cool. The Maison actually used fur before in fall 1997 for these surrealistic fur wigs, and the surrealism continues here with these pieces that most prominently feature 4 arms. And I think that's so wonderful because one of the classic things that skeptics will say about avant-garde fashion is they'll be like, well, really, there's only so much that you can do with it. What are you gonna do? Have 4 arms? Sorry if that gave anyone flashbacks to Thanksgiving with their family. You're not like a real fashion person unless you've heard someone in your immediate like friend or family circle say that to you, the 4 arms thing. And you just gotta sit there and smile and be like, that's a great point. All right, so we have 2 fur coats here that were combined into 1 coat. The fur vests, by the way, were done in the same way, combining 2 coats and eliminating 2 of the 4 sleeves so that it is still sleeveless, but it has these useless sleeves that are hanging down. It's a functional part of the garment that is functionally useless. It just adds to the shape of the look. And that really is a thing about fur coats, right? Like when you see pictures of like the golden age of fur coats, they're like these just like blobs. They kind of look like a Dark Souls boss. I am aware that boss is from Elden Ring. So each of the fur pieces had a red cardboard archival tag that hung from them to accentuate their vintage origin. Yet again, we see the Maison not only making reuse part of their brand identity at large, but they are emphasizing that in the product itself. We've seen this a million times before, but even if you know nothing about the Maison or what they do, the product of this fur coat tells you the story of its new life as a reassembled piece. And that is it. Oh, wait, that's not actually it. Join the Patreon so you can watch the full episodes. I mean, these episodes here, the public versions of these episodes, they take an enormous amount of time. A lot of thought goes into the analysis that comes out of these, a lot of research time. These take about 30 hours just to create the public version of them. But if you really want the full experience, you need to go join the Patreon. It starts at just $3 a month. It's really not that much money. It takes 30 seconds to sign up, and you're supporting the channel. So many people have told me that this is not a sustainable way to build a career for myself, and it has been so wonderful that you all have kind of proved them wrong with that. This has been really wonderful. Thank you for sticking with me through this series. I cannot wait to finish this thing out. We're well over halfway done. We're like 62% of the way done with this series. I love making this stuff. Thank you so much for joining me. I love you all a lot. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.